You should have it, Brianna.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, it is 4:05. The Medford School Committee of the Whole meeting. Meeting date is 3/9/2022. There will be a Committee of the Whole meeting on Wednesday, the 9th, 2022 from 4 to 6 p.m. held remotely on Zoom. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss, edit, and approve the draft of the school committee rules packet proposed by Member Rousseau. You can Zoom in or you can call in using number 929-205-6099. Please enter meeting ID 930-1644-8588 when prompted. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss, edit, and approve the draft of the school committee rules document proposed by Member Rousseau. If my memory is correct, we left off on page 1112 that we were reviewing and asking questions about. So,
Mayor?
Yes, Member Kretz has her hand up, and then Member Rousseau.
Yes, Mayor. I checked in with Mr. Russo the other week, and we stopped at number 67. I need to go back because I think we moved too quickly in the first meeting. I just have to bring something up about number 51 that I didn't get a chance to mention. So I wanted to just kind of go back to just review number 51 again, because I had notes and I never got a chance. I noted that I didn't get a chance to mention anything on number 51.
Sure.
And I also
absolutely.
just point of information also, Mayor, if we could put up the document so that folks watching or at home can see the document that we're referring to, that would be helpful. If someone could put it up as a screen share, please. And then that way we're also I'm not switching between windows because I'm working on a laptop with an elevated foot and makes it a little tricky. So the screen share would be great.
Okay, I have a hard copy, so I'm not sure if school admin could screen share, and Member Kretz.
Send one to Peter. Hold on.
Thanks. And Member Kretz, why don't you start off by going to
Mayor?
number 51? Member
Point of order.
Rousseau?
We haven't taken a roll call.
Roll call. Roll call has been requested by Member Rousseau. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Member Graham.
Here.
And I'm using my memory since I left the little thing at home, so I'm sorry they're going to be out of order. Member, I don't know. Member Hayes.
Here.
Member McLaughlin.
Here.
Oh, Member Kretz, you would have been ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
here.
1, 2, 3, 4. Member Mastone will be joining us later. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Member Rousseau. 5. Mayor Longo-Kern. Did I skip somebody? I'm sorry. I think that's all of us. I'm used to having it written down. Mayor Longo-Kern.
I am here. Yes, there's 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. So for now, we can move on to number 51. Member Kretz, you had a question on that.
So I originally in the prior meeting, I had notes listed here that it says, regular meetings will begin at 6:30. That's great. We made that adjustment in the last meeting to correct it from another time that it had said. No meetings of the school committee will go beyond. It says 11 p.m. I just have concerns about that for everybody who is in the school committee meetings, the administrators, the students, the teachers, just everybody, the public watching. I think 11 p.m. is just too late in the evening. We start at 6:30 p.m. I think it's more reasonable to have it go from like 6:30 to 9:30. And if there's a motion to recess, then we should take a roll call. Is there a motion to recess, and put everything on the table that we haven't covered, and then it gets put on the next meeting. So I have a motion to amend the time change from 11 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And the chair will then ask, as we're getting close to 9:30 p.m., if there is a motion to recess or continue the meeting until an extended period of time is stated. So, for example, like the chair would say, is there a motion to recess the meeting if we're not done? If we're close to being done, then you could maybe say, is there a motion to recess the meeting until like 10 p.m., and we might get done before 10 p.m. But I just think going from 6:30 to 11 p.m. with everybody's busy days and lives and having to be at school the next morning or work very early. I mean, I don't retain anything after 9 p.m. It's just gone.
I would
And
second that, Member Kretz.
okay, thank you.
That the 11 be moved to 9:30.
Yes.
Motion
And-
made by Member Kretz, seconded by Member McLaughlin.
Can I actually make a comment, Mayor, before we do the, would it be appropriate if I make just a brief comment? Or
Yep,
maybe we
before the
can hear
roll is
from,
called. Yep.
maybe we could hear from the superintendent. I mean, I know that this has been a conversation that I've had with a few of the administrators, and that to that exact point, I know that with COVID, obviously, we had really long hours and really long meetings, and hopefully we don't have to repeat any of that anytime soon. But even with 11 o'clock, getting up so early, I know from the administrator's perspective, I've heard the same, that it's been very difficult. And I also, definitely get really tired come 10 o'clock, especially if it's an intense meeting or there's a lot of material. So just wanted to ask if we might hear a weigh in from the administration, if they're able, if that sounds reasonable for them hourly.
Yeah, I definitely would say having the 9:30 end time is reasonable, knowing that sometimes we have either executive sessions or we could have future subcommittee meetings or future committee of the whole meetings that are back to a regular meeting. So we still potentially could be meeting from 4 or 5 until 9:30 and then do a check-in at that point in time. I do think 11 p.m. and it's just, that's a little too much. It's too long a day for us to be able to really function coherently. So I would be in support of a 9:30 time to check in, knowing that we may start earlier.
Thank you.
Member Hayes, then Member Rousseau.
Thank you. I mean, I certainly don't want to make anyone's days longer. My only concern is that, and I don't remember historically, even though I attended most of the meetings, how if most of the meetings do go very long, but at some point, if we keep backloading meetings with the previous week's unfinished agenda items, we're not going to make it through all of our agenda items. And I don't, again, I think I've said this a lot, but I don't know where the balance is, but I'm a little concerned that if we cut it off too early, that, on those days where we have a lot of agenda items, they're just going to keep getting pushed. I thought the purpose of this particular rule was really just to say, that's the outside time we will go to, not that generally we expect our hope meetings to go that long, but that this would just be the very latest we would ever go. So I'd be curious to hear what other people have to say. I am concerned about pushing items off too much.
Thank you. Member Rousseau.
Thank you. That is, Member Hayes's interpretation was correct, that this was sort of drawing a line in the sand. We've gone past 11 o'clock on many occasions. And I just thought it's important to remind us, the body and anybody else watching, that our meeting in February before the last one, I'm sorry, I don't have the date, had one item on the agenda, one item, and we went to 9:30. And that was as light of an agenda as I think I can recall us ever having. So I guess I don't mind 9:30. I would just like to know, what is the body intending to do when there's 6 unfinished items on the agenda, when there's public that has come to speak on items on the agenda that aren't going to happen till 10:30, which would be awful, but has happened. If this is going to be whatever our rules are, the language as it is, regardless of whether it's 9:30 or 11, is the meeting is over unless somebody stands up and makes a motion to say, let's just keep powering through it. It's not that we will discuss, hey, it's late, are we tired, should we keep going? It's the meeting is over. That's the language of the rule. To me, it seems like 9:30. I'd like to be out at 9:30 too. I go to bed at 9 o'clock on a regular night, but we will certainly have to discuss going to weekly meetings. And I know the administration is not interested in that. We will have to go to weekly meetings. If we're quitting at 9:30, on a regular basis. We had one item on the agenda and we went to 9:30. I assume that we have lots of work to do, that the school committee is not a rubber stamp. And I mean, when this item goes to the floor of our meeting, this could drag one meeting past 9:30 and just approving these set of rules if the public has comments on it. So the intent was 11 o'clock is the sort of the red line. As it's approaching 11 o'clock, we make it clear we're going to bump everything, or we have a conversation about the two extra items that are on the agenda that we can't get to. But that we all have something in our minds that is like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. We've got to stop, because we all agree. None of us, I'm not, and I've heard from other members, none of us are at our best at 11 o'clock. And certainly the administration and God forbid principals have to be at a meeting that late because they have to be at school to crack of dawn the next day. So that's all the 11 o'clock was intended for. But that was the intent. Thank you.
Member Graham, did you have a hand up?
I did.
Member Graham.
I do. So I think we've been elected to do a job, and I don't think the public particularly elected us to do an easy job. And I think there's a general expectation that we'll come and do the job, whatever it takes. And having said that, I'm also not a proponent of meeting very, very late into the evening. It's the reason why I voted against not starting a meeting until 6:30 p.m. because as I've been tracking literally since we took that vote, we never get to new business before 7 o'clock, really before 7:30. So we have a solid hour of things we have to accomplish easily, sometimes more, that happen before the kinds of items that the public would be wanting to weigh in on. And it's the reason why I think 6:30 is late to start, given that we're all concerned about the administration and the demands we're placing on them in particular. They are full-time employees, they're not elected officials, but they're sort of stuck with us for the duration. So I would be a proponent of starting the meeting at 6 and ending the saying that the end time of the meeting would be 10:30. I feel like that gives us a better window to actually accomplish our business without having to go to weekly meetings, bringing in the outside a little bit from 11 o'clock, and really not compromising the public's ability to participate. And I would welcome my fellow committee members' thoughts on that.
Dr. Edward Vincent, did you have a comment or not? I think you unmuted, so
Yeah, I just listening to what's being said, I think when the meetings need to run long, or if there's a heavier agenda and we need to have longer meetings, that those will happen. And to Member Rousseau's point, I think that some of our meetings, just by nature, they do end up running long. I can say to you that the 11 o'clock end time was shocking to a lot of colleagues that I just was getting some feedback from MASC. They have stated to us that efficient meetings should be anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours long to be able to go through an agenda. And so we on the school side have been making a significant effort to try to be as concise as possible and not have excessive reports that we're not able to get through it in a reasonable amount of time. So whether we start at 6 o'clock and you say to yourself a 2-hour window that would still bring us to 8:30, whether you start at 6:30 to 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, I had just felt that would be reasonable from a planning perspective. It just makes for a very long day for the school side staff, because it's not like anyone starts work at noontime or 2 p.m. and says that they're going to work until 11 p.m. if necessary. like everyone is in the field, working a full day, and then going to the school committee meetings, which we understand have to happen. And so I'm just thinking about bandwidth and trying to have that balance. So my hope would be that we would not have many meetings that have to go to 11 p.m. and trying to keep the agendas concise enough that, it could be a robust 2 hours, including the conversations that take place, to 2.5 hours. And if we need 3 hours or 4 hours, then you as a body could just vote to say, this is an important topic today. We need to continue to, push through and get to the end. Because I think sometimes there have been votes where, especially when amendments were being made, and these were meetings that went so late into the evening that by the time it took place, people weren't really sure on what was the final motion, because it just got too late. And I just feel for everyone's work-life balance and, mental health, that having a reasonable cutoff time, would be better.
Member Kretz?
Yes, and I'm going to keep my motion on the floor. I happen to, understand and agree with the superintendent. I have to get up at 4:45 a.m. and I am just exhausted by 9:30. And it's the next day. It's like I was on a boat or a plane. I can't get up. I can't think. I drink coffee. It just doesn't matter. You can't focus even the next day. You're affected by the very, very, very long day. And you can't drink coffee before the school committee meeting, because then I'll be up all night. So it's just, I'm going to keep my motion on the floor, and I can hear from both sides. And I just think that if we, have this time frame, and we know that we're going later, and there's important agenda items, or there are people from the public, just as I mentioned in the part of the motion, that a motion can be made to extend the meeting until XX time. And I think that would be reasonable for the administrators, the school committee, the public, and just the students, just everybody. I'm just trying to make it equitable for everybody. Everybody has to get somewhere in the next morning, whether it's school, work, family, everybody's got to get up, so I'm just trying to, I've seen our meetings, they can carry on. We're doing much better. And sometimes there are items that take longer, but that's not typical. Typical, we do run to 9:30, and then there's always the occasional late meeting, which can happen with a controversial or very, important topic. So we're not locking it down to just 6:30 to 9:30. That's it. The meeting's over. We're still giving, as part of my motion, I'm still giving the offer to extend the meeting if a motion is made. But
Okay.
I won't talk. I let other people talk. Yep.
Thanks. Can I ask Ms. Wise if you could mark Member Mastone as present, and then just also maybe a compromise. Maybe we could go to 10 p.m. and always can extend it after 10. If that's a good compromise, maybe we can have a motion on the floor.
I
No,
would
there's
be willing to
currently a
give both.
motion with a second. So if we want, member Kretz put a motion, I seconded it. We were debating the motion, but if you're suggesting an amendment to member Kretz's motion, I'm not sure what you're suggesting, but there is a motion on the floor with a second. I just wanted to mention
That would
that.
be up to Member Kretz if she wants to withdraw and then present.
I don't want to withdraw the motion, but I'm thinking, I heard from Ms. Graham, and maybe we could make the alternative where we could start the meeting at 6. We could end the meeting at 9:30. So that's the additional half hour, so that we're not keeping the administrators past 9:30 unless, there's an extension to do so. So I'm making a motion now to change the start time to 6 p.m. and the end time to 9:30 p.m.
Just if I may,
Yes.
that wasn't Member Graham's suggestion. She said 6 to 10:30. So I just want to make that clear.
Right. And I'm sorry, I meant to say the start time that she mentioned. So my motion, I'm going to change to, let me just get back. I just have to close the window to look at the motion, the words here. Sorry. So I'm amending my original motion to read, the regular school committee will begin at 6 p.m. No meeting of the school committee will go beyond 9:30 p.m. If the school committee is still meeting at 9:30 p.m., the chair will ask, is there a motion to recess the meeting until a certain time? Or is there a motion to extend the meeting beyond 9:30 in the evening and state the time so that everybody understands that there is an end time coming, whether it's going to be 10 or 10:30. A motion to continue the meeting requires the 2/3 vote. So the time changes would be 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m.
Second.
Member, and I'll just, it's 4:30 now. Member Hayes, then Member Graham.
I also have my hand up, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, and then Member McLaughlin.
So I just feel like we had a pretty lengthy discussion about the 6 versus 6:30 start time last time. And if we're going to keep revisiting these, it's going to make this meeting really lengthy. But we did have a discussion about how the 6 o'clock time is much harder for community members who want to watch, because, you know, that's a time when either they're just getting home from work, a lot of people, or, you know, busy getting dinner ready, whatever. And so we had a long discussion about keeping it at 6:30 because of that very reason. So I would vote to stay with that, but I guess we'll take a vote on the motion.
Okay, then you can always motion to sever start and end time if you want, Member Hayes. Member Graham, and then Member McLaughlin.
I am sensitive to the fact that, like, balancing all of these competing priorities is really hard. I just go back to thinking about the job we have been elected to do, and sometimes that job is going to be longer. I think it has to, you know, there have to be some guardrails that help us be efficient and brief and all those things. So I do think starting at 6, I don't think that erodes the public's ability to participate, because, like I said, we don't get to those agenda items until much, much later in the game. Our meetings are recorded and can be watched at any time. So I feel like that does mitigate some of that 6 o'clock start time concern. I think if we could all agree on like a 6 to 10 timeframe, I think that would actually be a nice compromise, and you know, continuing to work to not be meeting at 10 p.m. But you know, Kathy, my suggestion would be 6 to 10, so that we're not fighting by a vote of 2/3 about whether to continue a meeting, which could quickly become about avoiding agenda items and disappointing the public who showed up to speak. So I would like to see us think about the consequences of this in real time, playing out, needing 2/3 of a vote to continue at times when we have a room full of people who came to speak is not going to be pleasant. So I would rather our outside times be perceived as reasonable by everybody and never be construed that this committee is trying not to work hard on behalf of the students of Medford.
Thank you, Member Graham. Thank you, Member Graham. Member McLaughlin.
Thank you. I appreciate my colleagues' willingness for negotiation, and I just also, for clarity's sake, want to just say, I don't think for me, certainly, and I don't think for any of our colleagues, it's about working less. I think it's about working more efficiently. And I think everybody would agree that a lot of these meetings can go on. And in some cases it's reasonable. In other cases, I feel like it's not. But I do think that some of the rules that are being proposed could alleviate some of the issues that we've had in the past. So hopefully we'll see more efficient meetings based on some of the rules that are being proposed that we're, you know, going to be bringing before the committee. So there's that piece of it. And I am, again, super sensitive to the staff and thinking about, you know, an additional 4 hours after their long day. It is a lot, but I'm also sort of open to the idea of a 6 to 10 window with the full understanding that 10 is not the cutoff. is not the sort of the norm. It would be the cutoff. But again, if folks are interested in severing the motion and looking at, the start time and the end time, I think that's also a good consideration. But for me, I do think 4-hour meetings. Think about a business. If you were in a 4-hour meeting and people are like, this is 4 hour meet, after 2 hours, what's the productivity level? I think we would think about that. Now, I know businesses have more meetings than every 2 weeks. So, the other option is, meet more frequently at less times. And I think that would also be a whole discussion that people would not, there would be the pros and cons again. So I'm just trying to put a few things out there, but I want to make it really clear. 1, it's not about hard work. I think we're all hard workers. 2, it's about efficiency and having efficient meetings. And 3, for me, it's about the sensitivity of towards the staff that have very early mornings and very packed days. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor for a start time of 6 and an end time of 10 with the ability to extend, seconded by member McLaughlin. Roll call.
Mayor, what did you say?
Mayor, what about, I didn't withdraw my motion.
I think the current motion is 6 p.m. start, 9:30 p.m. end.
That
Okay.
was the motion that Ms. McLaughlin seconded me on.
Gotcha. Okay, member Hayes, did you want to speak one more time?
So I don't know how to do that. You suggested severing the motions. I'd like
Yep,
to
the
sever.
motion to sever,
Second,
seconded by member McLaughlin. Roll call vote.
so the motion to sever, just to be clear, is you're severing the start time and end time. So we'll take a vote on each item. Is that correct?
Correct.
But first, we're voting on whether to sever the motion. Is that correct?
Yep, motion to sever is it seconded, and we'll take a roll call on that.
Great. Member Graham,
Yes.
member Kretz,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Mastone,
Yes.
member Russo, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motions are severed, and there's a motion on the floor by member Kretz, seconded by member McLaughlin to start the meeting at 6 p.m. We can take a roll call, please.
Member Graham,
Yes.
member Kretz,
Yes.
member Hayes,
No.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Mastone,
Yes.
member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
No, 5 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. The meeting will start at 6 p.m.
Shall I do the 9:30 now?
Yes, please.
Member Graham,
No.
member Kretz,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Mastone,
Yes.
member Rousseau, no. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 5 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. Meeting shall end at 9:30 unless extended. Okay, moving on to pages 10, 11, and 12, where we left off last time.
What numbers are those?
Starting number 56.
Yes, 67 to 75.
Mayor,
Yes, member Graham, I just heard.
I believe that at the last meeting, we put number 67 on the table, and I would like to make a motion to take it off the table so we can discuss.
Motion to take
Second.
number 67 off the table by member Graham, seconded by member McLaughlin. Roll call, please.
Member Graham,
Yes.
member Kretz,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Mastone,
Yes.
member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. 67 has been taken off the table.
Mayor, I would make a motion to approve that as written.
Can we get a little, I'm sorry, Mayor, may I?
Yes, Member McLaughlin.
Can we get a little explanation of this a bit? It feels very complicated.
Member Rousseau.
Thank you. Yes, it is complicated. There is absolutely no question about it. This is just Robert's rules here. It is, I included it as a rule because it's so complicated, but also because it often gets confused between rescinded gets confused with what's the one after the motion to reconsider. And I thought it was really important to have the two of them back to back and have them in here so that if a member is in a meeting and needs to do one of these two things, or they don't have to go, you can go to the Roberts Rules website. You will not find this. They want you to buy their book. So you'll have to find your book and you'll have to figure out the right way to do it. So this is, there's nothing in this that is not exactly what Roberts Rules requires. And so I do want that to be clear that I've not changed the rules. This is a particular rule that I'm elevating into the document because I know as a member, I think this is a complicated thing to keep those two things to keep them clear. And it felt like other members might also find that helpful.
Mayor,
Member McLaughlin.
thank you for that explanation. That's helpful. And I do appreciate at the end of that rule having in parentheses the, see Robert's Rules of Order or per Robert's Rules of Order. When that's the case for this, and I guess the next one, that would be really helpful. So folks know that that is part of the rescind and reconsider. And I find that with my Robert's Rules of Order book, I often have to read it a couple of times to understand the process, and also sometimes YouTube videos or what have you. So I do think that's helpful. I think it's a little complicated as one reads it, and I assume others will think the same. But if we have the Robert's Rules of Order, and I might make a friendly suggestion for a hyperlink or something, that would be really helpful to Robert's Rules, please.
Member Rousseau.
Thank you. I was going to wait till we get to the end of this, but I was actually going to make a motion to be given authority to go through and add Robert Rules of Order references to all the places that it belongs. I don't have those available right now, but that was something I was going to suggest that we do add to this document. So is that a motion, Member Graham?
Yes, that's a
McLaughlin, sorry.
Yes, that's a motion. Motion to add Robert's Rules of Order to the specific rules being proposed when it's relevant, with a hyperlink to Robert's Rules, so that for posterity, people who succeed us will have access to what it was we were actually referring to. Thank you.
Second.
Point of information.
Point of information, Member Rousseau.
Yes, the word hyperlink was used. Hyperlinks mean going to a web page, but these are not available on the web because so can we just, would you change the language of that to be just a reference?
Yes, a reference, but I would prefer a hyperlink because these will be available on the website at some point, correct?
No, Robert's
The
rules.
No,
The rules
the
of-
rules, our rules.
I'm not sure I'm following what the request is.
I
So may I, Mayor?
Member McLaughlin, and then I believe Member Graham has her hand up.
Yep. So all I'm saying is that I think the reference to Robert's Rules is great. And then I would ask that there be a hyperlink once this is on the website to the Robert's Rules, because I am assuming our rules will be on our website. And then if somebody's reading, say, a member of the community or a new school committee member for orientation or anything, our rules on our public school website, and they see something referencing Robert's Rules of Order for one of the specific rules, that they could click to that hyperlink and be brought there so that they could learn more about what it is we really set our rules up on. So I hope that clarifies. So I would amend my motion to say when the, Robert's Rules of Reference for any of the motions, for any of the rules that are proposed when it's appropriate, parenthetically or referenced, and then a hyperlink for when those go live online.
Member Graham?
Yeah, just to clarify, you want a hyperlink to the general Robert's Rules of Order website. Is that what you're asking for? Because
Yes.
this specific detail is not available on the website because they want you to buy the book. I think that was Member Rousseau's point.
For this specific one for rescind, but it is
Correct.
for, yes, but there's lots of information for the others. So I think not specific to the particular motion, but in general, so that people know to what we're referring. Thank you.
Okay. Second.
Mayor?
Member Rousseau?
The website does not actually provide you with the Robert's Rules of Order. There's an FAQ where you can sort of see some summaries of questions that are common. And even within their own FAQ, they will include a reference, the RONR page 146 in edition 29 or 12 or whatever it is. You cannot refer to the individual rules of Robert Rules of Order on the web because they're proprietary, copyrighted, or whatever the right language is. So it is not possible to add a reference to what the language in Robert Rules of Order is.
Mayor.
Member McLaughlin?
Thank you. So to that end, it doesn't have to be that specific to the specific roles. I am asking that people are directed to what, and including school committee members, are directed to what Robert's Rules of Orders actually means and where they can get more reference. And I think that by going to the homepage of Robert's Rules, they can see, yes, books, they can see, references. I'm sure they can understand that, if I Google or YouTube this, I'll probably be able to figure it out, but at least some landing page, something that explains to them what that actually means, because otherwise it has no anchor, no meaning, especially for a layperson. So just simply asking that we include the hyperlink, not specific to each of the motions, as Member Graham seconded, please.
Yes, motion by Member McLaughlin, seconded by Member Graham. Roll call, please.
I need the language, Mayor. I can't call it until I can type it.
Shall I state it again?
Please.
Mayor? I would ask that there'll be parenthetical information for each of the motions that are Robert's Rules of Order specific, as in example 67, Part D, see Robert's Rules of Order. And then, at the end of the document for reference material, what have you, which I would ask that this document ultimately be posted online. So that's part 2 of my motion. And then the third part is that at the end of that document, there be obvious, an API reference to Robert's Rules of Order with a hyperlink to a website, please.
I'll go back to the recording and write all that down. Was there a second? Sorry.
Second.
Yes, by Member Graham.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Kretz.
Yes.
Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you.
Member Mastone.
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Paper passes as amended.
Mayor.
Yes.
I have in my notes that Member Graham had made a motion to accept the rule as written. I don't know. That got lost.
We can take a separate roll call on that if you'd like. Yep, seconded by Member McLaughlin. Roll call.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Kretz.
Yes.
Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member McLaughlin.
Yes.
Member Mastone.
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Paper passes. Are there any questions on page 10, 11, or 12?
What numbers are those? I'm sorry, Mayor, because I just have mine in a Google Drive, so I just have the numbers. I don't have pages. They're different pages.
Number 68 to 78, we can start with.
Okay, I'm just going through those numbers. One moment. Yes, so I do have some concerns about number 77. I actually even reached out to the city council, Rick Cariello, on this. So it says all requests passed by the city council that pertain to Medford Public Schools will be sent to the school committee to be part of the next agenda in accordance with the school committee procedure and timing is found in addendum 1, add item to agenda. The city clerk is authorized to add items to the school committee agenda following our established procedure and add item to agenda. The school committee may refer such requests to the superintendent upon a majority vote. The superintendent is not authorized to respond to city council requests to attend city council meetings or perform any actions requested by the city council without a majority vote. I was just reading this and, it's just, the city council is another body and we have the add the agenda item instructions for us. So we're going to give our instructions to the city clerk to add items to the school committee agenda. I don't think that is a good idea. I'm not sure whether I'm misunderstanding this. And then I wasn't sure, and it's not something that's currently being done. I did, ask about that. And then where the superintendent is not authorized to respond or request to any email, correspondence with city council, I feel it's too restrictive. And, I'm just wondering if I could maybe hear from the superintendent on, what her thoughts are on the way that this rule is written. I really just don't really follow it.
Thank you, Member Kretz. I tend to agree, if I may, from the chair. I think it definitely restricts the superintendent's ability to do her job. So I won't be voting to approve this either. If anybody else wants to comment, or Dr. Edward Vincent, Member Russo.
Thank you. So the part about adding to the agenda, I don't know what the right process should be. The city council in the last couple of years has in fact passed things that they wanted the school committee to respond to. And we got an email from somebody, I think in the mayor's office, to all of us as individuals. We as individuals have no authority to respond for the school committee. So we have no process right now. If the city council wants to ask the school committee a question, there's no way for that to happen. And any of us showing up as city council to answer as the representative of the school committee, in our last meeting, we just made that clear. That is not acceptable either. So I don't know what the process is now, but ignoring the city council, which I think we should respect them, and as another body in our city, they deserve our respect, but we have no process for how to respond to them. So that's all I'm trying to lay out here is some process. It can be any process. It doesn't have to be using our format. It can be somebody, the president of the council, the city clerk, I don't care who, sends an email to the superintendent and asks that it be added to the agenda. I don't have any preferences at all in that. This was just my first thought, is that we already have a process, so it's not that complicated, so why not use it? But it doesn't have to be that. As for the part about the superintendent being called to the city council, we have an org chart on page, I think 2 or 3 of our budget every single year, going back to at least 1997, that says the organization of our government. The superintendent has no line in any way, shape, or form with the city council. When the city council beckons the superintendent, she should not jump. There is absolutely no relationship between the superintendent and the city council. And I think it's not fair to the superintendent. I mean, what if we had a city council that expected the superintendent at every meeting to answer questions? So now Monday nights are school committee and Tuesday nights are city council meetings. We need to make it crystal clear that if the city council wants to talk to the superintendent, we have to give permission for that to happen, because that's actually the facts. That is a fact. That it's not really a discussion point, it's a fact. And I think it might be collegial and nice if the superintendent just shows up whenever they ask, but there's only so many hours in the day. The superintendent works for this body. And I think that expecting the superintendent to report to 2 public bodies is just highly inappropriate. So that's why I wrote this rule, and that's all I can say so far.
Dr. Edward Vincent.
I actually feel like in my short time in this role, the 4 years that I've been in Medford, I have never had a situation where the Medford City Council, was calling me on like a weekly basis. Really, the majority of my interaction with the City Council would be at the end of the budget season. The requests that have been made over the past few years have been really reasonable requests, or maybe an inquiry. It has been nothing like I don't want it to. I don't want to present that my inbox is being flooded by council members. Sometimes it's a very simple inquiry or a quick question. Maybe a constituent may have asked them a question and they just said, let me just reach out to the schools. So it's something that is so rare that I don't feel like number 77 is really necessary. The add item to agenda, it's over the past, it's even hard to recall what some of the requests were, because they were usually a very reasonable ask, and it is not something that they are asking on a weekly basis. It could just be, can you provide a little clarity, on a particular thing, maybe something in the vocational school, or wondering that they were just wondering about. It's so rare that I almost feel like putting this in insinuates, that there is a problem. I deal with the clerk's office. Every time we have a meeting, we send our communications to the clerk, and he has always been responsive to, posting and those kinds of things. But I have never, had something asked of me by the city council that would, be a cause for alarm. And if something like that were to occur, I definitely would notify the membership, this body immediately. So I don't think that it's necessary. If there was a difficult request, I would definitely, make sure that we added it to the agenda. And usually when we do receive a request from the city council, it comes from the mayor's, from the mayor's office. So there's some kind of communication of this is a wondering or an inquiry, but it is so rare. I mean, I don't even think in the past 4 years, there probably weren't even 10 questions in 4 years. I think fewer than 10, maybe 5 or 6. Very, very rare.
Thank you, Dr. Edward Vincent. Member Graham, Member Kratz, Member Rousseau.
Thank you. My understanding of this motion is not that the council would have to do this if they had a harmless question, but when they take the time to talk about something on the floor and take a vote on something that pertains to schools, or like we're going to ask the school committee something, or we're going to ask the superintendent something, when they've taken the time in their meeting to weigh in a majority way on something, I do believe that should come through the school committee. I don't think we have a process today, which is why it doesn't. And I'm glad that it really hasn't become an issue, but I just want to point out we're headed towards some very interesting discussions as we talk about the high school complex, as we talk about ARPA funds, as we talk about funding for our schools, as we talk about all the things that we know are coming. And I am a proponent of having process that is not onerous, but establishes good habits in times when it's easy to have good habits. If this comes to blows about the high school, that is not going to be the time for us to be establishing process. So I am a proponent of having a way for this to happen in a consistent and rational manner. And the last thing I'll say is that we get a lot of pushback from the administration, rightfully so, when we ask for things because there is not enough capacity to do, whatever the thing is that we might be asking. And I think it's reasonable to think that some of these things from the council could over time take time. And if they're going to take time, this body needs to decide whether the thing the council voted on Tuesday night is more or less important than the thing that is in front of us, the following Monday night. So from a prioritization perspective, I think it's really important for us to have process around this and a structure that allows us as a body to consider all the things we have to consider, which in fairness, the council couldn't know about. Like the council has, no idea and shouldn't be expected to know about all the things that we contend with in terms of all the very real resource contention we have in our own district. So expecting them to be able to weigh that when they make, when they take the time to have a vote, I think is unreasonable. And putting this in place would allow us to have a good open line of communication and to do so not at the expense of the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Graham, Member Kretz, Member Rousseau, Member McLaughlin.
I will wait to hear from Member Russo and Member McLaughlin before I go. I just want to, hear what everybody's thinking, and then I'll go at the end.
Thank you, Member Rousseau, then Member McLaughlin, then Member Kretz.
Thank you, Mayor. Superintendent said something really important that I want to highlight. The individual counselors emailing the superintendent to ask a question is absolutely not what this is about. Just like with school committee members, individual counselors have no authority. And if they email the superintendent and ask a question and the superintendent responds, they're a member of the public asking a question. And that's fine. I'm talking about when there are votes happening and they are, if they, as Member Graham mentioned, we have big expensive things coming up in conversations around our schools. And it is both, I expect, and it would be surprised if the council does not have questions, big questions, report size questions, go do some analysis questions. I mean, these are big expensive things that they have to consider if there's going to be a debt exclusion or something like that. So I expect them to be doing this, and for them to have a direct line to the superintendent when it isn't. I mean, and I know that the superintendent said, if they ask for something big, then obviously she'll not necessarily push back, but she'll seek the guidance of the committee on an agenda. But I think that having a process ahead of time is also good, because then it doesn't look like we have gotten sick of all these requests from the council and we're pushing back. That's not the goal of this at all. I would agree that this is my 5th year now, that has not been a problem. But I expect it will become not a problem, but something that will happen as we deal with ARPA and perhaps a new high school. So this is definitely just about when the body takes the time to take a vote, what happens to that communication, because I think there have been at least 2 instances where the body took a vote asking for something, I think from the school committee, and nobody knew what to do with it. I mean, how do we respond? And I don't even think we even have a rule in there, maybe we do, about how do we respond? What do we do with a response to the city council if we have a response? I don't know. We vote and hope they watch the meeting on Monday night. That's not a real line of communication, but that's a different rule probably. So that's all I have to say on this thing.
Member McLaughlin and Member Kretz.
Thank you. I appreciate the policy in expanding on communication between the school committee and Medford City Council. So, if they are voting on something regarding the schools, it is really important and great for us to know that that's been voted on and that be sent to us and added to an agenda item so that we're aware of that. So the first half of the of the motion makes a lot of sense to me. I think the second half, after some of our colleagues' explanation, makes more sense than it did in the initial read. Because we're talking about city council, obviously, as a body. So referring the request to the superintendent for a more majority vote is fine. The superintendent is not authorized to respond to city council requests to attend city council meeting or perform any actions requested by the city council without a majority vote of the school committee. I think I'm behind that that sentence. I think that what's maybe problematic for some people is the strong wording around not authorized. And I just don't know if there's a way to wordsmith this that is a little bit more collegial, as folks were saying. So maybe it is the superintendent is, permitted to respond to city council requests, to attend city council meetings, perform any actions requested by the city council with a majority vote of the school committee. So just flipping the language. So losing not authorized and without, and making it more strength-based language is what I would suggest as a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Member McLaughlin. Member Kretz?
Yes, so I still have some concerns about both parts of the way that this is written. And let me I'm sorry, because when I do click off, I have to get back to it. One moment, I gotta get back to it. Oh, okay, hold on. It's over here now. 1 second. Okay. Okay. So I've been listening to everybody, and I was thinking about the first part of it, and this is just what I'm thinking. Maybe we could change it to say something like this: all motions passed by Medford City Council that pertain to the Medford Public Schools will be sent by the president of the council to the school committee chair to be reviewed as an agenda item, seeking guidance from the committee in accordance with the school committee procedure and timing as found in the addendum, add item to agenda. And that's something that the superintendent would then make that determination. The mayor would then maybe forward it on to the superintendent, and she can make the determination on, okay, let's get this added on the agenda. I want to seek the guidance from the school committee. And that, we would have some sort of a process where you're thinking about in the future, we're going to have a lot of requests, maybe. So that could be part of it, just a simpler plan for the rule. And then, the second part, I don't understand why we have to include the majority vote of the school committee. So if the superintendent receives a simple email, oh, I just wanted to know, just checking in, the vocational program is having, this particular new equipment, oh, did that get purchased? Something like that, just something simple. I feel as though she gets the email, she should be able to email back the city council without putting that on the agenda so that we can take a full vote at the next school committee. So I'm just thinking of it, just try to keep it a little simpler, where it would just say the superintendent is permitted to respond to, to city council reasonable requests to attend city council meetings or perform actions requested by the city council, within reason, and it's, it might need a school, but it depends on what the request is. It might be something that has to go on the agenda that we all have to make a vote on. But, I think that the way that it's written right now, it's just too restrictive, even though I've heard from everybody, and I still feel that it does insinuate that we are having problems with the city council, and we are not. And I do think maybe in the future, with a lot of things going on, with upgrades to the high school and, body cameras on police officers, yes, we might have some requests, but as the superintendent mentioned, it's very rare. And, I just think getting it on the agenda, would be the best way to do it if it comes through from the city council president. So I'm just trying to really just simplify this rule and just, kind of just make it a little bit simpler and friendlier.
Thank you, Member Kretz. And the way it works is the city council will vote on it, and the clerk will send it to my office, and then I send it off to the superintendent, and my office did CC the school committee, especially if the language says this, the school committee specifically and not the superintendent, just to make you all aware. But I would, compromise with something like that, that if we feel then it's a serious issue, then it goes before the school committee for a vote. Otherwise, I think you got to let the superintendent respond to requests and questions that the city council has without having to bring every single item for a vote on the school committee nights. Just my opinion. Member Graham, then Member Rousseau.
I just want to sort of reframe the reason we're talking about having rules, and it has nothing to do with a response particularly to something happening, and it's no implication of anything in this moment. It's instead our collective desire to say, we want to have rules so that we can operate effectively and avoid issues in the future. So I just don't want the narrative of this discussion to be somebody thinks we have a problem. Like sometimes that's how a rule gets created, but the whole point of this document being somewhat disconnected from any particular controversy or controversial issue is so that when those controversial issues come up, we can operate against something consistent that we've all agreed on when we're not in the middle of a controversy. Having said that, Kathy, I have no idea what your proposal is in terms of the amendment. So I'm not clear what you're asking us to vote on.
Yeah, and I'm trying to word it. I'm sorry, and I'm working on it right now, Ms. Graham. Sorry, I'm trying to put it all together with what the mayor just mentioned. So let me just reflect on what the mayor just mentioned. She mentioned that the current process, and I'm just trying to go through what she just said. The current process is that she will, if something was voted on the floor. So let me just get this going. Sorry. So all motions passed by Medford City Council that pertain to Medford Public Schools will be sent by City Council President or City Clerk to the school committee chair to be put on the agenda, in accordance with the, procedure that we have in place.
I think it should be based on the chair and the superintendent's review.
Yes.
They decide whether it should be placed on the agenda. This can get really out of hand. What if the school city council says, I want a copy of the report that was given on Monday night, February 2nd. Okay, it's public record. It's probably on the website, but we'll shoot it to you by email. Should that have to go on the next school committee agenda to be discussed on whether or not the superintendent should be allowed to provide them an email, the clerk an email to say, here's the report that was discussed on February 2nd. It will get so cumbersome. Our 6 to 10 p.m. meetings could turn into far lengthier. And I just think the superintendent should have the authority she knows very well when to loop the city school committee in. I mean, it's just constant emails and updates. And I think it's been working pretty well, but we can always put something in that says if the chair and the superintendent believe that it's, questionable, let's put it on a school committee meeting and let the committee vote on how they'd like us to respond to the council.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. And I can just reword it because I'm just doing this just from all the conversation and I'm trying the best here. So, okay. So let me just see if I have this right here. So I would make a motion to change number 77 to say all motions passed by the Medford City Council that pertain to Medford Public Schools will be sent by City Council President to the school committee chair to be reviewed whether or not it should be added as an agenda item, and I'm sorry, I'm just losing you because I didn't write it down.
Thank you.
That's as far as I retained.
That's just my opinion, but I know.
No, I agree. Like, I think the way that it's working right now is working, but we don't have it documented. So I'm trying to get number 77 recorded the way it's working now, exactly the way it's working now.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to do.
From the city clerk to my office to the superintendent.
That's it. Yeah, just simple, and then like all these rules, if we're having issues with any one of them at any point in the future, as we said already, we can bring this up on a regular school committee. We'd like to change this. Something's not working, but we have to start with something. So let's start with what we're doing right now. And that's my motion. I hope everybody got that.
Okay, Member Rousseau, then Member Graham.
Thank you. Member Kress just made a point that I think is really important. Nobody here knew what the process was, but apparently the mayor and the superintendent. The point of the rules document is that we are all equal on this board. None of us knew what the process was. So I think it's fascinating that we're putting all kinds of trust in the process, and nobody knew what it was, but the mayor. That seems kind of hard to wrap my head around. I also don't think we can pass a rule that tells the city council president what she will do. So I don't think we can specify that the city council president will do something. So I think that part of that motion doesn't make sense to me because we don't have the authority to tell the city council president what to do. I suppose you could say that the city clerk, we also can't tell the city clerk what to do. However, the city clerk is an employee and is the person who manages motions that are passed by the council. So that person certainly seems the obvious natural one. I guess we could also have the rule say that a member of administration will watch all city council meetings and respond appropriately if they come up, but that would be horrible and burdensome. We did have a motion earlier to change the language to be strength-based, to remove the not authorized and make it authorized, and change the without a majority vote to just with a majority vote. I would second that before we start going into the 3 or 4 amendments and changes we've gotten into. So I don't know if there's interest in a roll call on that.
I'd be happy to take a roll call on that.
Okay, that was Member McLaughlin's motion, seconded by Member Rousseau.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Kretz,
No.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member McLaughlin,
Yes.
Member Mastone,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
For that change in that sentence, yes.
What did Member Kretz say?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, I just said no because I would just like to strike that whole section, that whole sentence. So I'm just not in agreement with that sentence. So that's why I'm no.
So is there a motion on the floor to strike the sentence?
Yes, motion on the floor to strike the sentence, the entire last sentence. The superintendent is not authorized to respond to city council requests, attend school committee city council meetings, or perform any actions requested by the city council without a majority vote of the school committee.
Is there a second? Okay, no second. Member Graham, Member Rousseau?
So as it relates to the beginning part of this, I think what might make sense is to amend the language to say that the council generically will pass information about requests passed by the council to the mayor and the superintendent. If the request can be answered with information that is publicly available, the superintendent will do so. If the request requires additional effort on behalf of the district or administration, it'll be placed on our agenda. If it's a matter of public record, like to me, that is not what we're talking about. Like if there's a report that exists that's already in the public domain, then we're not talking about that coming to us ahead of time. I think what we're saying is if you're going to expend energy, effort, time, money, creating something to respond to an inquiry, those are the things that we want to see. At least that is how I am interpreting this. It's not to say we're going to gatekeep publicly available information. That would just be a giant waste of time that nobody has.
Yeah, I was just using that as an example. But if it's an easy information or answer, then I don't think it needs to go on the agenda, but maybe we can just spell that out, time, energy, and man hours.
I think it's, if
man,
it's
woman
publicly
hours.
available information, I think that's the answer, right?
Member Kretz.
Yes, so I still have the motion on the floor for the beginning part of the rule, the way that I had, read that out. So I'm not sure, I don't remember. Did I have a second by anybody on the way that I had worded it?
Can you say it again?
Yep. I'm just looking at it right now. I think I erased a word, but I was like making changes. Sorry. Oh shoot! I think I did. 1 second. Let me just grab this for a second because when I was typing, I actually think I erased some words. Oh gosh. Let me see number 77. Let me through it from the paper. Okay. Let's see. Wait. Okay, so this is what I had originally said. All requests passed by Medford City Council that pertain to Medford Public Schools will be sent to the school committee chair and will be reviewed with the superintendent to determine if it can be answered or needs to be added to the agenda. And
Kathy,
yes.
Kathy, can you put that in the chat for me?
Yeah,
Sorry.
let me do that. Yeah, because let me get there. Sorry, I'm going to do that right now.
Thank you.
Just looking around, but there it is. Okay. All right, let me just go here.
And Member Kretz, perhaps we could say if it can be answered with publicly available information, and that just sort of provides that end cap to the conversation we were just having.
I think that sounds fine. I'm just going to go get the language again. Instead of typing, I'm going to try to copy and paste it. Let's see. Okay. Let me just get this over the seat. I'm just going to be typing. I'm sorry, guys. I actually did remove a sentence from the original document on my Google Drive. So I've got to retype it. I'm getting there. That pertain to the public schools will be sent. There. Super reviewed. Everything. Mm-hmm. If it should be added, okay. If it should be added. I think I've got it. And Ms. Grimm, if you want to, I'm putting it in the chat now. Let me just get back to the chat. Getting a little twisted. Oh, gosh. I didn't lose everybody. 1 second. Okay, Zoom. Okay, there it is. Let's see. Got it. Let me see. And oh, I don't know if you can see it because when I see it,
I can see it.
you can in normal, like it's not all crazy. Okay, it's the way it shows for me, it's giant. So, all right. So, if you want to copy and paste and then put the portion that you were talking about, Ms. Graham, where that would fit.
Okay. Here you go.
Mayor,
Member Russo?
and just to make sure I am writing down exactly this correctly. So this would replace the beginning where it starts with all and continue all the way through till really until we can just get rid of that how to add items to the agenda section. So right up until the sentence, the school committee may refer such requests. No, actually that sentence seems like that needs to go as well, right? So this would be replacing everything up to that last sentence.
Yep.
Last sentence, yes. And by the way, I just did my grammar check and I made some changes. Grammarly told me to make some changes. So I just repasted it with the correct grammar. Sorry. So take a look at the new little post that I just did in the chat because I have my grammar check in another area. Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to re-add this piece.
Yeah, sorry.
It's kind of funny. This would actually be much harder in person than it is on Zoom.
Mhm.
There you go.
So do I have a second on the motion, the way that it's prepared in the chat?
As amended by me, Member Kretz?
Yeah, yes, as amended by Ms. Graham. Mhm.
Second.
Motion for approval, seconded by Member Graham. Roll call, please.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Kretz,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member McLaughlin,
Yes.
Member Mastone,
Yes.
Member Rousseau. Yes, I'm waiting for somebody. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Paper passes. Are there any questions on 79 through 90?
Let me
It's
put
the
my
duties
name.
of the secretary, duties of the superintendent. Seem pretty clear.
I'm just going to go into my notes again. I just closed everything down when I was
Take your time.
moving things around. 1 second here. Okay. It's not really a concern, but it was just maybe an add to number 82. It's currently 82 says the secretary will actively monitor remote participants. I'm just thinking it should say the secretary and the mayor and the secretary will actively monitor remote participants to identify when there is a hand raise. So that way there we have two eyes looking out, the mayor and the secretary, to just make sure everybody's heard. Just to
It's actually Dr. Cushing or the superintendent that usually do it for me. I don't bring a computer.
Oh,
up there.
okay. All right. Then I guess, then let me, just to have another person on that. So then, my amendment would say the secretary and superintendent or, another administrator, designated administrator will actively monitor remote participants to identify when there's a hand raised.
Perfect.
I need a little more, what does it say?
The secretary and
And
superintendent or administrator will actively monitor remote participants to identify when there is a raised hand to speak on any item on the agenda pursuant to the policy. Motion for approval by member Kretz, seconded by
Second.
member McLaughlin. Roll call, please.
Member Kretz? Member Graham, sorry,
Yes.
Member Kretz? Kathy?
oh, yes. Did you hear me? Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh,
That's
am
okay.
I on mute?
You're fine
Nope,
now.
you're good.
Oh, okay. I'm back. Okay. Sorry.
Member McLaughlin?
I don't know how
Yes.
Member Mastone?
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern?
Yes.
Did you
7
call member
affirmative.
Hayes? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh.
call him.
I think I did. Member Hayes? I typed
Yeah.
Member Hayes and didn't. Okay.
No problem.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Paper passes.
I think number 83 is redundant with 82. 83 says the secretary will ensure the chair is aware when remote participants wish to speak. That it's the same as number 82, I'm thinking. So I just think we should just strike number 83 because it's redundant.
Either way is fine with me. Is there a second for that motion?
Mayor, just gonna
Second.
speak on this real quick.
Member Rousseau, and then seconded by member McLaughlin.
Thank you. When more than one person is responsible for doing something like that, then when all three of us are in this meeting, the secretary, the superintendent, Peter, we're all there, and a hand goes up, and one of us is responsible. That means that it's sort of like when you arrive on the scene and everybody's like, somebody must have called 911, right? And it turns out everybody's standing around with their phones, assuming somebody else called 911. So I do feel a little concerned that we are not specifying who is responsible. It's not that other people can't do it, because certainly even in the present day, if the mayor hasn't noticed a hand going up, I'll jump in and say, Mayor, there's somebody with their hand up. I just think that we need to be precise about who's responsible, whether it's at every meeting saying, at the beginning of the meeting, somebody is who's on first, because otherwise we're going to move on to, and we've had this happen in meetings on Zoom on, frankly, a number of occasions where hands were up and none of, we didn't have a laptop in the particular setting or whatever. We were in person, and this is usually a problem when somebody's where we're in person and there's public that's not. And the hands go up and we move on to the next agenda item. And that it creates this weird thing where it looks like we just didn't let the public speak, which I do not want us to be in that situation. So I'm just a little concerned that we are not saying who's going to do this, because I know in our last meeting and the meeting before, where the superintendent had a laptop up up where she sits, and both the mayor and the chair and the superintendent would notice the hands are up, and I was trying to say hands are up. It gets confusing if three of us are trying to say that there's somebody wants to speak, and I don't really care who it is, but it has to be, somebody has to know it's their responsibility to make sure that it happens, or we move on and the public doesn't get to speak. So I just wanted my little say on that.
Mayor,
Member McLaughlin.
can we just merge 82 and 80? Just merge 82 and 83. If
Sounds
member
great.
Graham
Yes.
is available.
Yes, I second that.
Okay, Kathy
And
withdraws her
withdraw
motion.
mine. Yep. And I'll withdraw mine. Mhm.
That will just be the last sentence of 82.
Mhm.
Okay, motion by member Kretz, seconded by member McLaughlin. All those in favor, roll call?
Member Graham,
Yes.
member Kretz. Member Hayes,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Musto,
Member Stone?
thumbs up. Nice to see you, Mia. You can put a thumb up there. Okay. Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 82 and 83 emerged. Any questions on duties of the superintendent?
Yes, I wanted to mention on number 84, I think there just needs to be an exception to this rule. So I think it should say the superintendent will be present in person or via remote participation at all regular meetings of the school committee, with the exception of illness, bereavement, or emergency. I would like to just hear from the superintendent about what her thoughts are on that, because people are going to get sick. There are going to be family emergencies, so that's what I was thinking.
Is there a
So that they
second
would
on
just-
the floor?
Second,
Motion for approval by member Kretz, seconded by member Rousseau. Roll call, please.
member Graham,
Yes.
member Kretz,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Mustone,
Yes.
member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Mayor.
Member McLaughlin?
If I may, I just wanted to thank Member Russo for all of the hard work on the proposed rules. This was obviously a tedious project and a lot of work, and the collaboration, as was just exemplified through Member Kretz. I think this is a really good example of how we can all work together as a team. And at times it was arduous, but I think this has been productive. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I do have a question about how this will be married, how this document will be married to the policy, or how the policy piece will be cross-referenced to the rules. And I know that we've said there's a distinguishment between the rules and policy are distinguishable from each other, but I do see repeats in them. So I'm wondering what folks are thinking in terms of that, because I don't want them to be too redundant and people not thinking that they're repetitive and wouldn't read the rules versus the policy. So I'm curious what my colleagues would say about that. Thank you.
Member Rousseau, then member Kretz?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, member McLaughlin. I appreciate it, and I definitely, as much as I felt like I came here with a set of rules that I thought was, this is great, we should just go with this, I will admit that they are in fact much better now that we have collaborated on them. I wish that sometimes I wish the open meeting law was a little had exceptions where we could literally have just done this through the years in a Google Doc, but that isn't an option. So I really appreciate that. I do have a motion that I think would cover those concerns, and if I can just make that right now. I motion to allow the secretary or anybody else interested to go through these rules and provide references as appropriate after each rule, or in line as appropriate for Mass General Law, school committee policy, and Robert's rules, which we discussed earlier, in the format, and I just provided a format of like policy ID or whatever. Further, I will embed hypertext links to these references when possible. Further, the secretary, in the event the rules are adopted, will provide a list of policies that must be updated to reflect the changes contained within the approved rules of the Medford School Committee, and bring this list to the committee for referral to the appropriate subcommittees at the regular meeting following approval. It's a lot of words. Let me put it in the chat so you can see it.
Can I make a friendly amendment, Mayor?
Member McLaughlin?
I would just also ask that, I mean, we did find obviously the policy rules through the website that were slightly embedded, and also they're formatted according to the MASC, because it was a MASC that was a document that was sort of part of our subscription package, and then modified based on, previous meetings and what have you. It's a very cumbersome document. It's very difficult to read. The font, frankly, is very difficult to read. And particularly if the policy, the rules are going to be in I would assume, an easy to read Google Doc, that the policy could be in a similar sort of format, just so that they're not, because they do relate to each other, they're interconnected. And so that the format is similar. So I would just make a friendly amendment that the policy document is updated to a similar format as the rules document, so that they are user friendly for constituents and candidates.
Mayor.
Member Kretz and Member Rousseau.
I had just a question about number 90. So I don't know if you want to finish the conversation that's currently ongoing, and then I can go after that.
Please, Member Rousseau.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that friendly amendment, because that's hundreds of pages of policy. This current document is 13 pages, and I really don't have the bandwidth to spend weeks or months reformatting our entire policy manual. I agree with wholeheartedly with Member McLaughlin that the policy
Can I make
service
just a point of
format is a
information?
mess.
Can I make a point of information? Member Russo, I'm offering to do that. I'm not asking that you do that. I just think it needs to be a friendly, user-friendly document similar to this 13-page document. I've already cut and
Point of
pasted.
information needs to be a question. So Member Rousseau, can Member McLaughlin have the floor?
Yes.
Member McLaughlin.
Thank you. So the point of information was, I guess, would it be acceptable if I offered to do the reformatting similar to the rules document?
I think, Mayor, if I may, I think, and you can make that motion and send it to the next school committee meeting. It doesn't seem relevant to what we're doing. That's why I don't want to change this motion to include additional work that's not related to the rules document.
Okay.
Okay, so on Member Rousseau's resolution to put the links in, is there a second?
Second.
And Member McLaughlin, roll call?
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Kretz. Member Kretz.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Member Hayes. Yes. Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member McLaughlin.
Yes.
Member Mastone.
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes. 7 the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes. Member Kretz.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the superintendent about the rule number 90. I believe this is a new rule that's being put forth, and this would be something that would be handled by her team. So I would just like to hear from Dr. Edward Vincent on what her thoughts are on Rule 90. Thank you.
Yes, so based on some of the information from some of our meetings toward the end of the year, we actually do have an internal kind of tracking system right now that has most of these fields. And Ms. Weiss has been managing that with the new numbering system. So we will be able to add the few additional fields that are not on the tracker that we currently have with the new numbering system. And next to letter G, my request was going to be to change continuing to containing if it was supposed to be containing. I'm not sure, Member Rousseau. But we have already started an internal tracking system. So it's being done right now in order to kind of help us keep track of everything that's taking place right now.
Thank you.
Member Russo?
Thank you. Yes, I guess I will just make a motion to correct a couple of the, there's actually two other errors in item number 90. In D, it says date sent, it should say the subcommittee. And in F, it says meeting dates of subcommittee where the item has been on, it should say the agenda. And those two plus changing continuing to containing. So that's my motion to make those three changes.
Second,
Seconded by member Kretz and McLaughlin. Roll call.
Member Graham,
yes.
member Kretz, member Hayes,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Mustone,
Yes.
member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Paper passes.
Mayor, I do have a motion to make a change to item, I think it's 85.
Rousseau.
If you could, thank you. It is, yes, rule number 85. I'd like to motion to strike the second to the last line where it says be the custodian of the school committee records and other papers. I believe that actually role has been assigned by the superintendent to someone else, and I don't think we need to specify that. I don't know if the superintendent has thoughts on that.
Can you just tell me reference which number and section?
Sure. It's number 85, and it's identifying a bunch of things that the superintendent will do, but it also says that the superintendent will be the custodian of school committee records and other papers.
No, I support your revision, member Rousseau.
Second,
Motion by members. Okay, so you leave it as alone. We'll leave it alone. It doesn't need a second. Right? It's
sorry?
fine as written. Is it fine as
No.
written?
No, we're striking the part where it says be this custodian of school committee's records and other papers.
Who's the custodian of records, if I just may ask?
I believe that is Ms. Weiss.
So should we add that to this rule, or because Ms. Wise works for the superintendent, leave it in as under the superintendent?
My understanding of this is that it's a legally required role that has to be applied to an employee has to be identified as being that person. So I don't think our rule can say the superintendent if it's not the superintendent. I'm fine with changing it to some other language, but who the custodian is has to be transparent, I think. And I mean, if we want to add another rule, although I don't know that it goes under duties of superintendent, maybe another rule that says the superintendent will appoint a custodian of our records.
Make a motion that we add a sentence that says the superintendent will ensure that there is an appointed custodian of records at all times.
Mayor,
Yes, member McLaughlin.
appointed custodian of record that is published, on the website or something that people know who it is. Friendly amendment.
Yep.
Second,
Motion.
So, sorry, Mayor, I'm just trying to get the language. So I would change the language to end after record keeping system, period. The superintendent will ensure that there is an appointed
Custodian of
custodian
records.
of records And this information will be posted on our website.
Mhm.
Excellent. Did we have, I think we had a second.
We did.
Any other? Should we go for a roll call now?
Yes.
Member
Yeah,
Graham?
roll call, please.
Sorry, thank you. Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Kretz,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member McLaughlin,
Yes.
Member Mustone,
Yes.
Member Rousseau. Yes. Mayor Lungo Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, paper passes.
Are we ready for a motion to adjourn?
I believe we are.
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
Mayor,
Mayor.
Hold on.
Mayor, before we do that, should we have a motion to report this out to the full
Yes.
committee at our next
Yes,
meeting?
that's- Motion to
Motion
report
to
out
report the document out to school committee.
by Member McLaughlin, seconded by Member Rousseau. Roll call, please. This will be on our March 21st meeting or agenda.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Kretz.
Yes.
Member McLaughlin,
Yes.
Member, I skipped Member Hayes. I'm sorry. Member Hayes.
Yes. Yes.
Member Mustone,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Lungo Kern.
Yes. Motion to report this out to the next regular meeting has been approved. And motion to adjourn by Member McLaughlin, seconded by
Second.
everybody. Kretz.
Member
Roll call,
Graham.
please.
Member
Yes.
Graham. Member Kretz.
Yes.
Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member McLaughlin.
Yes, and I would like to note that we are 12 minutes ahead of schedule and we're ending early. Team, thank you.
Let's keep this up.
Right. Member Mustone.
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Lungo Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.